This is NDDC Today.
Now, all of a sudden, there's a lot of talk about mega projects performed by the NDDC. We know ab initio, the NDDC was supposed to have, a program to build many mega projects in the Niger Delta. But then again, you ask, what are mega projects? Quite honestly, mega projects are multi-billion naira projects. Things like regional electricity, regional water, regional roads, and so on. And quite a lot of these actually do exist in the NDDC.
There are lots of communities today that would have not been possible. They would not have been able to have a relationship with civilization if not for the direct intervention of the NDDC. You've heard about the story of the Ogbeangembe Road. It's in partnership with Shell, but again, that partnership was born out of a desire by the NDDC to do something for that community. And people along that line, communities along that line, are direct beneficiaries of the NDDC and what the NDDC actually stands to mean in their lives.
NDD seems to be the only government presence that the people of the Niger Delta now know. The local governments seem to have abandoned their responsibilities. Some of the state governments have abandoned their responsibilities. So when there is a road that is impassable, it is NDDC people run to. When somebody needs medical attention abroad, it is NDDC he runs to. When there are children that need to go to school, or there is an outbreak of epidemic or something, it's NDDC people are running to. Whereas what NDDC is supposed to do is intervene. So the governments are supposed to do their jobs. The local government is supposed to repair the roads, the village roads, fix the markets, construct potable water, and then NDDC can intervene with mega schemes. But when all those have been abandoned, you now see NDDC having to put boreholes here and there, having to equip health centers here and there. So it becomes such a daunting task. And in my view, my assessment of NDDC is that this is an intervention agency with a mandate that is a work in progress.
But mega projects take a lot of money, and over many years before the amount that is slated for them to be completed are actually realized. So mega projects are not things that you just embark on overnight and finish in 2 to 6 months. Some take years, like the Ogbeangembe Road, for example. So there are quite a few mega projects going on in the Niger Delta by the NDDC, some at various stages of completion. Some 80, some 70, some 60, because these projects actually take, quite a few years and a lot of budgetary commitment to get them to be completed. And actually, effectively developing the Niger Delta means undoing 63 years of rot.
Let me tell you, you're talking of Niger Delta, you're talking of even one state alone. The rot in the system is so much. The decay in infrastructure is so much that NDDC cannot overnight turn the Niger Delta into whatever anybody is expecting.
So all ado about mega projects and actually the cost, of making an effective difference in developing the Niger Delta. Now, having gotten all that behind us, we say good evening and welcome to NDDC Today. Hi. Now, it's not every day, you sit around in the NDDC and somebody walks in to say, thank you for what you've done. Nigerians are much better at saying, they are not doing well, this, and that. Everybody knows how difficult it is, quite honestly, to be effective as a developer in Nigeria. The difficulty and so on, so on. So when you're there and somebody walks in and says, well done, it kind of lifts so much cloud from your mind. It's very encouraging. And that's precisely what happened recently when no less than a naval commodore walked into the NDDC to say thank you for their rather incisive intervention on a road that's been impassable for the past 25 years.
The Nigerian Navy has commended the Niger Delta Development Commission NDDC for its efforts to facilitate the sustainable development of the Niger Delta region, noting that the interventionist agency was helping to alleviate the sufferings of the people. The Commodore Superintendent of the Naval Shipyard Limited, Commodore Abolaji Orederu, stated this when he led a team on a courtesy visit to the NDDC headquarters in Port Harcourt to thank the acting managing director of the commission, Professor Nelson Brambaifa, and its leadership for rehabilitating Reclamation Road, Port Harcourt, and reviving the fortunes of the shipyard and businesses in the area. He added that the road was done in an area where there is a lot of social-economic activities. According to him, the completion of the road has given the people a brand new life, stating that NDDC has alleviated the sufferings of thousands of people living in that area.
Sir, we are here to say a very big thank you for rescuing us from many years of discomfort, of hardship and difficulty.
Commodore Orederu called on the NDDC to partner the Naval Shipyard on shipbuilding and repairs to generate employment and boost economic activities in the region.
We intend to build boats for you, hospital boats that can go to the creeks and do medical missions where you cannot easily set up hospitals, and transport boats as well, passenger boats, and several other things that we can do together.
Responding, the acting managing director of the commission, Professor Nelson Brambaifa, stated that NDDC was committed to creating wealth and reducing poverty in the Niger Delta as a strategy to resolving all the developmental challenges in the region. Professor Brambaifa commended the Navy and security agents for their efforts to maintain peace and security in the region, especially on the waterways, stating that no development can occur in a state of discord and unrest, and NDDC has benefited from the work of the Navy and other security agencies. He disclosed that the NDDC has partnered with the Navy to undertake 17 projects, out of which 11 have been completed.
We are an intervention agency. We've intervened in so many areas. How many of them have come back to tell us thank you? You are one of them. It goes on record. It goes on record. So you came back to tell us thank you. With that, you are encouraging us to do more. I know we have partnered with the Navy and we have undertaken 17 projects, out of which 11 have been completed. These include 8 building and 3 roof projects. We are ready to do more.
The NDDC boss noted that for over 25 years, Reclamation Road had remained impassable and was proud as a true Niger Deltan to have been part of the team that rebuilt it. He added that even though it only covers 2.6 kilometers, the significance of the road is multifaceted. Also speaking, the Acting Executive Director, Finance and Administration of the NDDC, Dr. Chris Amadi, applauded the Navy for appreciating the Commission. He said that the gesture was unprecedented.
It is rare to find Nigerians and institutions express appreciation like this. What you would rather see in our country is more of condemnation or the negatives. When you find positives like this, we think it is necessary to highlight that.
This is the popular Reclamation Road in Port Harcourt, now looking good, allowing for a smooth and pleasurable driving experience for residents and road users, a case that was virtually impossible until the Niger Delta Development Commission came to the rescue by rehabilitating and reconstructing the 2.6 kilometer length of road. Residents and business owners here have had to live and endure the unenviable, terrible and hopeless condition of the road and its negative effects on them.
The road was very bad, too bad. But we thank God for NDDC. They have come to save life and the road is now accessible.
With several companies and businesses located and operating in this area, including the Naval Shipyard Limited and some oil companies, the rehabilitation work done on the Reclamation Road by the NDDC could not have come at a better time, as commercial and business activities had nosedived over the years when the road was in a bad shape. Although the construction work on Reclamation Road is 100% complete and now in use, residents' memories of the challenges they had to go through for years to navigate this road leading to their homes and businesses is still fresh.
For years we've been suffering a lot on this road. Our cars, the under, as a result of this salt water, if you move an inch up there, you will see that bridge. There was a salt water that crosses the road. That place was something else. And as a result of that, sometimes when we drive to that point, we'll have to park and then stroll in. Strolling it was not easy. Sometimes when we carry load. But today, the story is not the same.
NDDC do the first one, and this one they do. In fact, I don't know who is concerned, but I always pray that God, Jesus Christ, come, sit down, see my neighbor now. I pray that Almighty Heavenly Father will help anybody who prepare this issue. Inside the NDDC, God will prepare them. Because why? They relieve us from bondage. If not behind NDDC, now we for no fee pass this road for this rainy season.
Thank you, Commodore Oredero, for making our day. Now, the executives of the NDDC realize how important it is to always communicate with the major stakeholders in the area, particularly the state governors who have their own responsibility to contribute to the overall development of the Niger Delta. Well, if they are to be in synergy, then there must be a working plan for state governors, the NDDC, and indeed other development agencies in the Niger Delta to kind of synergize their ideas. And that's precisely what the Niger Delta Regional Development Master Plan was meant to do. So it was not a surprise that during the courtesy visit to two state governors, the governors of Bayelsa and Cross River, the matter came up again.
It was indeed a homecoming for the acting managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, Professor Nelson Brambaifa, when he visited Bayelsa State to pay a courtesy visit to the state governor, Henry Serake Dixon. Professor Brambaifa was received at the entrance of Yenegua by men, youths and women of different associations and cultural groups across the state that trooped up to welcome him to his state as a worthy son and ambassador. At the government house in Yenegua, the acting MD and his entourage, including the acting executive director projects, engineer Dr. Sam Ajogbe, and other directors of the commission, were received by the state governor and members of his executive cabinet. Governor Dixon applauded the Niger Delta Development Commission NDDC for the engineering feat it carried out in partnership with Shell Petroleum Development Company, SPDC, to construct the multi-billion naira Ogbuanembe Road.
By the grace of God, with what you did, with what Shell, your partners did, our people are enjoying that beautiful smooth road now. To Nimbe, going to Nimbe is now very pleasurable. Nimbe has become, from what the deputy governor keeps reminding me, an upland community and local government. So that's the kind of partnership we should be having.
While calling for greater collaboration by the NDDC with major stakeholders in the region, Dixon called on the federal government to fulfill its obligation to the NDDC by paying up the 1.9 trillion naira it's owing the commission to enable it carry out its mandate more effectively. Earlier, the acting managing director of the NDDC, Professor Brambaifa, reeled out some of the major achievements of the commission in the state as he called for support from state governments in the oil-bearing region.
The Niger Delta Development Commission has completed 405 projects in Bayelsa State. Ongoing projects are 379. We have also taken over 4 projects In addition, there are 185 projects that have not yet started, while 30 projects are 17. This brings the total number of Bayelsa projects to 1,043.
The acting MD urged the state governors in the oil-producing area to take ownership of the proposed review of the Niger Delta Development Master Plan to reflect the vision of the various states for an integrated socio-economic development and regional economic union of the Niger Delta. Professor Brambaifa assured that NDDC is not competing with state governments of oil-bearing states, but only looking forward to having a partnership which in turn benefits people of the Niger Delta region. The Chief Executive Officer of the NDDC also used his visit to Bayelsa State to commission the Bodice Road in New GRA layout extension in Otio, Yenagua local government area of Bayelsa State. The 1.5-kilometer flexible pavement road with a width of 7.3 meters and 1.8-kilometer line drain is 100% complete.
Decades ago, the kingdom of Nembe, among other communities, buried in the bellies of the Bayelsa mangroves, were cut off from economic and social civilization for lack of measurable roads. In 2006, the NDDC, in partnership with Shell, came with the promise of hope. A 27-kilometer high-tech highway with 5 bridges cutting through rivers, swamps and mangrove forests of the Ogbea Upume Makalakala up to the city of Nembe town. It's now in use. The joy of the Nembes and his environs now knows no bound.
Before we used to join boats, 2 days we are on the sea, going to Port Harcourt. The boat will cover side, people will lost.
The joy of being integrated to the mainland can never be quantified.
The contractors handling Ogbanembe Road, which had just been completed, Mrs. Setraco, they got their payment without even knowing anybody here. That is the way we want to go.
The NDDC, focused and enabled, will do more.
The Cross River State Governor, Professor Benedict Ayade, has welcomed the plans of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, to review the Niger Delta Regional Development Master Plan and pledged to support the process. Professor Ayade was speaking at Government House Calabar during a courtesy visit by the NDDC Acting Managing Director, Professor Nelson Brambaifa, who was accompanied by the Acting Executive Director of Finance and Administration, Dr. Chris Amadi, and other directors of the Commission. The Cross River State Governor regretted that very little of the master plan, which was expected to last from 2006 to 2020, was implemented. This, he said, had been imperative to undertake a major review of the integrated roadmap for sustainable development. Professor Ayade further underscored the need for a comprehensive review to reflect the current realities in the states covered by the NDDC, noting that the master plan was meant to set up structures that would enhance collaboration among the stakeholders.
A full master plan for NDDC focusing on the Niger Delta was developed. Very little of that master plan has been implemented in truth, in kind, in action and in voice. And therefore your call to ask that we return to that master plan and implement it is apt and is very urgent.
The Governor appealed to the NDDC to support the government's rice seeds and seedlings factory in Calabar, which he said was part of the agro-industrial revolution taking place in Cross River State. Earlier in his address, the NDDC Chief Executive urged all governors and important stakeholders of the Niger Delta to take a second look at the master plan and make it the roadmap for development that it was designed to achieve. He affirmed the federal government had charged the NDDC to facilitate a stronger collaboration among stakeholders in the region to help fulfill its mandate of facilitating the rapid, even and sustainable development of the Niger Delta.
Recognizing the long years of Niger Delta decade, understanding the pervasive poverty and mounting unemployment which has driven our people to agitation and driven by the passion to leave a legacy in NDDC, that speaks of our determination to lay the foundation that helps the Commission to fulfill the best goals of its mandate. I advance still that we all must reactivate the Niger Delta Development Master Plan and rebuild the Partners for Sustainable Development Forum as veritable vehicle for sustained development.
The NDDC boss acknowledged the strategic importance of Cross River State to the Niger Delta development, stating that the Commission would seek ways to forge a stronger alliance with the government and the people of the state. According to Brambaiva, the NDDC would work with the Cross River State government to resuscitate and strengthen existing partnerships, as well as find new areas for collaboration, especially in agriculture. Professor Brambaiva said that the NDDC was determined to improve infrastructure in the state, such as roads, electricity and jetties, as well as provide water, better healthcare and opportunities for skills acquisition, employment, higher education and small-scale businesses.
So as should be expected, the Niger Delta Regional Development Master Plan, is in focus again, as it should rightly be, because if the development of the Niger Delta is to be coordinated among all the change makers, then they must all meet regularly. Of course, there's also the controversial visit to the River State Governor that we'll take next week on our program. Now, since 2010, the NDDC has been looking seriously at the dearth of qualified professionals who have a potential to take over managerial positions in managing the wealth of its oil. Now, since 2010, the NDDC has sponsored, various graduates who want to go deeper into their professions abroad, where such courses are offered that can help them develop managerial and technical skills to deal with the situation in Niger Delta. Now, this year, 2019, a set of 210 have received their letters of award. That means they're on their way to these universities abroad to study. At the pre-departure briefing and orientation to the awardees at the Presidential Hotel in Port Harcourt, the acting managing director of the NDDC, Professor Nelson Brambaiva, who was ably represented by the Director for Education, Health and Social Services, Mr. Goshua Okejoto, said that the program presents the scholars a new vista of opportunities to deepen their knowledge and equip them with skills to conquer the world. He urged them to take the opportunity with both hands and fulfill the investment of hope that the Commission put on them. The NDDC Assistant Director for Education, Health and Social Services, Mrs. Winifred Madume, urged the beneficiaries to be worthy ambassadors of the Niger Delta and use the opportunity to develop themselves and acquire technical expertise for the benefit of the entire region. Speaking on behalf of the beneficiaries, Mr. Nelson Ologadia, who is going to the University of Dundee for a doctorate degree in law, thanked the NDDC for making the selection process fair and transparent. He promised that they will put in their best to be good ambassadors for the region.
We're grateful, we're thankful, and because you have been meticulous in choosing us, rest assured that we'll be worthy ambassadors of the NDDC, of the Niger Delta, and Nigeria in general. We will not let you down.
The beneficiaries of this year's postgraduate foreign scholarship program had gone through a transparent electronic examination conducted at the Rivers State University of Science and Technology before they participated in a selection interview. Now, talking about being ambassadors of the Niger Delta and personalities that the Niger Delta has actually produced who are responsive to their communities, we're glad to know that one of our own has made the list. He is no less than the Executive Director of Projects. He has bagged the 2019 Rotarian of the Year and Service Award for his contributions to his community in Ughelli, Delta State. Obviously, the man, Dr. Jogbe, has proven himself a proactive intervener, managing projects and building and enabling causes. His NDDC background may have been a critical factor. This becomes even more plausible given his grassroots person and local content educational profile. Rotarian engineer Jogbe, who holds a PhD in Mechanical, Industrial and Production Engineering, was reappointed Acting Executive Director Project NDDC on January 25, 2019, and just recently bagged the 2019 Rotarian of the Year Service Awards. The recent bagging of the 2019 Rotarian of the Year and Service Projects Award is a further recognition of his meaningful contributions to service projects and the Rotary Foundation, cum Rotary Club of Ughelli Metropolis 2018 to 2019, and indeed to the Niger Delta in general. Congratulations, Rotarian Engineer Dr. Samuel Ajogbe. Our own Director of Finance and Administration, Dr. Chris Amadi, has also been inducted a Fellow of the National Marketing Institute of Nigeria. All that happened an eventful week for the executives of the NDDC. Over the years, many distinguished Nigerians have been awarded a Fellow of the National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria, including the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Oshibajo. Now, our own dear Dr. Chris Oyerinda Amadi joins the list, the Acting Executive Director of Finance and Administration, NDDC. He is now into the Hall of Fame of the National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria as an honorary fellow member of the Institute. The occasion was held glamorously at the Eco Hotels and Suites, Victoria Island recently. The National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria is the body for professionals engaged in marketing and related fields as marketing practitioners, mass communication experts, and chief executive officers in private and public sectors. The vision of the National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria, NIMN, is to be the engine room of value creation for consumer empowerment and society's development. Once again, we say congratulations to our own EDFA, Dr. Chris Oyerinda Amadi, who now becomes a Fellow of NIMN, National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria. So to conclude, the NDDC has lots of mega projects in its hands, some at various stages of development. We would say that a little patience is required. Secondly, the NDDC Graduate Scholarship Award Program is still very much on. 210 graduates have just been given their letters of award and on their way to universities abroad. Okay, we'll be here every week to tell you how the NDDC is inching towards its mandate of bringing sustainable development to the Niger Delta. Thank you for watching. We'll see you same time next week.